Hello and welcome, students. Today we're going to be talking about delivering quality tourism. You'll recall that in the first chapter we've talked about tourism, and we've learned the fact that it's the largest growing industry globally. And you'll also recall that last week we may also mention that tourism is very, very important, as service rendering is at the core of any industry or any company. So basically, we are concerned about satisfaction of your customers, as they are at the core. So for this week, we'll move on to discuss about how you can deliver quality tourism services. The learning objectives are quite many, so I'll just read through, not everything, so I'll just scan through a few. The first is to describe how services are different from goods. We're going to differentiate or explain how services are actually different from our goods. Then we'll move on further. I'll skip 2 and then we'll go to 3. We'll move on further to explain the different factors that affect a guest service experience. What are those factors that affect guest service experience? And later we'll try to explain how a person develops expectations of a service and how tourism organizations can meet or exceed their expectation. Apart from the aforementioned, we're going to name and describe the 5 service quality dimensions. We'll try to explain what tourism managers can do to ensure high quality service. Then we move further to explain how negative breaks from scripts should be handled in order to turn frown upside down and create guest loyalty. And lastly, for today, we're going to list the important aspects of a service guarantee. As a form of introduction, we all know that service or tourism companies or industry is actually a service rendering industry. Majorly what obtains is that people render services. So services are actions, unlike goods that are tangible, that you can see, you can feel, you can touch. Services are majorly actions. So you want to see, you are rendering actions. You are rendering services to people. They want to see your action, all right? While goods are material objects. Usually services are often accompanied by facilitating goods. There are times that services are being provided while facilitating goods are also being given so as to accompany the service that are being provided. For example, maybe an airline company that provides perhaps a brochure or whatever for its customers. So these are examples of services. Okay, these are examples of facilitating goods that are accompany service. Now we want to look at the differences between goods and services. Like I mentioned earlier, goods are actually tangible. They are majorly tangible. You can see them, you can feel them. They are objects basically. But for services, they are intangible. They are actions. It's not like we can see them, but we can only feel them and appreciate them. Then services are highly perishable. All right. Once it is rendered, then that is the end of it. So, unlike goods where you can maybe continue using and so on. Then services are actions performed by one person on behalf of another. Say, for example, a representative of a company. So he or she is representing the company to provide a certain service or services to the customers. So customer is often active participants when it comes to producing the services. So customers usually are part and parcel of the service that is being rendered, because you cannot just be working in a vacuum. You have to have somebody that the service is being rendered to, and that is why the customers are also very, very important when it comes to service rendering. So this particular figure depicts the goods and services continuum. You can see that we have pure services on this end, while on the other hand here we have the goods, okay, the goods with little service. In the middle course here we have a combination of both service and then facilitating goods, like I mentioned earlier, where a company can produce or can provide a brochure for its clients. So when we talk about pure services, we're talking about those actions that are being rendered to satisfy customers. And on the end here, on this end here where we have high service rendering companies, you'll see that we have an example of travel agency. So this is purely what they do, they render services. Unlike a souvenir shop, where they basically deals with sales of goods. Okay, so they deal with sales of tangible goods or objects. You go to the souvenir shop, you see what you want to buy, you pick it up, and then you make your payment for it. For travel agency, they only render services for you, all right? They take you to your destination and so on and so forth. So we also have some at the middle course here where we have a combination of both, like they are not purely goods, they are just meant to facilitate the service that are being rendered, and that is where we have the facilitating, or that is what we call the facilitating goods. They usually accompany the services that are being provided. So next we want to discuss about quality now. What is quality? What do we mean by quality? Quality could mean different things to different people because it could be objective and it could be subjective. When we say objective, it means that we want to see quality as something that is being measurable, something that we can measure. That okay, perhaps you want to say this thing is very good or it's not very good. On a scale of 10, we want to rate the quality. At times, it's synonymous with excellence. All right. Usually, we perceive it to be synonymous with excellence. But technically, from the management and marketing perspective, quality represents a form of measurement, like a ruler or a thermometer, something that you can actually scale, something that you can actually say to what extent it is provided. So when we say quality is from the objective perspective, it means that it's something that we can actually measure. We can say to what extent something is of quality. But when it comes to subjective, then we are talking about services from perspective, from your personal perspective, from your own viewpoint. So like I mentioned earlier, it is synonymous with excellence. It's a form of measurement, an amount of quality. So the eye of the beholder means that it's the beholder that actually tells you how beautiful it is. So services is based on the quality is actually judged by customers, especially most times. When you talk about the value-based definition of quality, then there should be a trade-off between quality and its price, meaning that when you say something is of a good quality, then the price should show for it. Or when you say something has a very high price, then the quality should show for it. So basically, there should be a kind of trade-off, okay, between quality and price. For example, if you look at the airline, you want to take an airline, you are thinking of buying a first class or a business class compared to an economy class flight. You see that the differences in the price actually tells you that okay, something is going on. And if you look at the services that are being rendered to those in the the first class or the business class, you definitely know that yes, the price actually what it is actually what the service that is being rendered for them. So that is an example of a trade-off between quality and price. Next, we want to see why quality is important. Why is quality so important? Higher quality has been found to give 3 benefits, and this is the reason, or these are the reasons why it is very, very important to emphasize on quality. The first is it commands higher prices. All right, it commands higher prices. The second is that it increases the market share. You have a larger percentage of the market or the consumers in the market. Then it generates truly brand loyal customers. When you have quality, when you render service and when you render quality services, then you're likely, or you're very much on the, you are very much likely to win the loyalty of your customers. So they will just stick to your brand and continue using your brand. We have some of us here that have been using some brands for maybe over decades. All right, so that is as a result of our trust in those goods or the services that any company, any service rendering company is going to render. So when people are satisfied with your services, they tend to patronize you more and they tend to come back. So by that, you gain their loyalty. So this image actually depicts the quality definitions. I mentioned earlier that the first impression that we have is about excellence. It's about excellence. Most of us look at quality from the excellence perspective. The second one is the amount of quality, okay? Viewing it objectively, viewing it as something that is measurable. You want to know whether it is high or it is low, okay? The service or the product is of high quality or it's of low quality. So it's more or less like we're having a mindset of something that is measurable. Okay, so that's the objective perspective of quality. The next is the subjective. You want to see, okay, whether you're highly satisfied, you're just satisfied, all right, or you're not satisfied at all. So these are perspective, they are perceptions. So they are referred to as subjective quality. And lastly is the value-based perceived price relative to quality, where you want to judge the quality versus the price of that good. Moving ahead, we want to talk about quality differences. What are the differences in quality? We've mentioned about tangible goods and we've mentioned about services. Services quality is more difficult to define than quality goods. When we want to talk about quality goods, we can see that they're actually tangible goods that can be seen, they can be touched. So you can easily identify, or when you are comparing goods, okay, you can easily identify those that are actually of good quality compared to services. Quality is engineered into outgrowth, right? Manufacturers are able to consistently build standard when it comes to quality rendering. Meanwhile, services are actions of people who vary considerably. So because of this, there is a high level of difficulty to some extent, okay, when it comes to differentiating quality services, because customers often participate in the production of a service. Customers are part of service rendering. So whether you like it or not, unlike goods, tangible goods, where only the manufacturer processes the goods and produces it and everything. But for customers, for services, customers are part and parcel of the production, right? Because they will be the one at the end of the day to judge the service. There is always an encounter, between both the service provider and the customers. Meanwhile, customer skills, decisions, and companies can also affect service quality. Moving further now, we want to talk about service encounter. Every interaction between a service employee and customer is a service encounter. Okay, like we always say, it's often, okay, my encounter with so person, this is my first encounter with this particular company or this particular person. So an encounter is an interaction. An encounter is an interaction between a service employee, okay, who will be the service provider now, and the consumer. Both parties bring expectations about what will occur during the encounter. As a service provider, you have some expectations, all right? You have some expectations about who you are going to meet as a person, that's a consumer. And as a customer also, you have expectations about the company, about the service that you are seeking to be rendered, and so on. So we learn what to expect from past encounters and observations. It could be through past encounters, perhaps you've had some interaction in the past, or you've observed that particular company for some time now. So all this form basis for our own expectation of ourselves during the encounter, that is the interaction. So each member of the interaction plays a role in the service encounter play. The customer is expected to play his or her own role, while the service employee is also expected to play his or her own role. Then we also have the service scripts and then service encounters, which are moments of truth. The encounter is the moment of truth because that is the moment you're having interaction with each other, and this is where the quality is being judged. Okay, this is where the customer will tell you, oh, I don't like your service, or I'm very much impressed by your service. All this will be judged by your customers during the encounter. Also, it's possible for the employee also to judge, to have some judgment on the customer also. Oh, since I've been working here, I've not come across this kind of hard to come by customer or something like that. So whichever way, there are usually moments of truth during which quality is being judged. So this is a presentation of services as a theater where everyone has a role to play. Okay, so we're going to adopt all the terminologies used in the theater. All right, like you can see here, the service terminology, for example, we have employees, and in the theater they call them casts. What is their responsibility? They are the ones that are going to render the service. All right, then moving on to customers as well, they will be the audience when we are terminating in theater terminology. When we are using the theater terminology, then we tend to call the customers the audience. Just like physical facilities that we expect to be in, to have been put in place. So also the cast is expected to, the set is expected to have been provided when it comes to the theater. At the front stage, we have those are the audience, the people that the audience see, the people that the audience interact with. All right, so at the front stage of the service and rendering companies, these are the service employees. Okay, they are the service provider, and so on and so forth. Next is the service encounter as a theater. That's a pictorial presentation of service as as a theater. Okay, here we have the backstage, that's behind the stage. Here we have the front stage. So looking at the symbols here, you can see a single-headed arrow, which is going to talk about the perception. The perception is just your own feeling, your own thoughts about the other person, or what you are having an encounter with, or who you are having an encounter with, while the second one, which is the double-headed arrow, suggests an interaction. It indicates an interaction. That means both will indicate or interact with each other. For example, we have two guests here at the front stage, guest A and guest B, and they are going to both interact with these scenes or scenarios where we have employees. Okay, employees. So for the single-headed arrow, it's going to be a kind of perception of the customers. Okay, customer A, customer B, or guest A and guest B about here the service that is being rendered in terms of perhaps the facilities and so on, and then the interaction with the service provider or the service employee. So it could also be a form of interaction, that is a double-headed arrow, where the guests interact with the front desk employees, or they may also interact with each other. So this is how the flow occurs when it comes to service encounter. Service expectations. Customers usually have certain expectations when they are being rendered some services. Okay, regarding the quality now, there are usually expectations, and it is what is going to determine how they are going to judge. This is going to determine their judgment of the level of quality of the service that is being rendered, and this can be accounted for in many ways. First is the word of mouth communications. Okay, whatever they encounter during their communication is going to go a long way in determining their expectations. So also their personal needs, their past experiences, as well as marketing communications. All these are very important when it comes to customers' expectation of service quality. Moving ahead, now we want to talk about the quality dimensions, which are 5 in numbers. The quality dimensions are 5 in number. The first is the tangible, and these are the physical aspect of the service that customers can see or interact with. So take, for example, the facilities that have been provided on ground. All right, it is possible, or it is most likely, that maybe guests or customers rate a hotel, for example, that has bigger rooms, rate them of higher to have higher quality than another hotel that has smaller size of room. So this is just an example. So for tangibles also, these are physical aspects of the service that is being rendered. Then reliability, this is the ability of the personnel to perform the service accurately and consistently. Like I mentioned earlier, there are expectations, okay, on both sides actually, but majorly on the customer's side now, they have some level of expectation of the kind of service that they want you to render, that they want the service company to render. So reliability talks more on the personnel that is going to perform the service. Next is responsiveness, and this is employees' willingness to help and provide prompt services. Okay, there are times that customers may need help, they may need assistance, they may just want to make an instant inquiry, and they may just need a prompt response from the service rendering employee. So their responsiveness is also very, very important when it comes to the quality. Okay, when it comes to quality, so that is another dimension to which quality can be rated. Moving ahead is assurance. That's the fourth quality dimension. Assurance, when customers have sense of trustworthiness. Okay, when they have some sense of trustworthiness that the employee inspire. Okay, so it's the employee that is going to actually inspire customer to have assurance, some level of assurance based on their own trustworthiness. How, to what extent that customers feel that the employee or the company and the employees are actually trustworthy. So lastly, among the quality dimensions is empathy. Empathy, this is the warm, fuzzy, and heartfelt hospitality the employees shows the customer, individualized treatment. So depending on who you're dealing with, or the environment, or at times the situation. So when customers have this impression of empathiness, then they tend to rate service rendering company good as having a higher quality. So here is the picture how service expectations are formed, the picture of the service quality model. We've talked about all this one, the word of mouth, personal needs, past experience as they affect or as they determine the level of quality. So all these are based on, or they lead to the kind of expected service, and this will be compared. This has to do with their expectations, like I mentioned earlier. It will be due to their past experiences or encounter, and so on and so forth. So their expected service, they will now be compared to their perceived service. Okay, so the comparison of both is going to actually determine what is known as their own perception of service quality, and the service quality will eventually determine their level of satisfaction. Don't forget that we've also mentioned the factors that put quality in service. Okay, the factors that add to quality in service. That was what we discussed in the previous slide just now. So we will talk about the tangible, the reliability, empathy, responsiveness, as well as assurance. So these are divided into the expected service and the perceived service. So at the end of the day, we want to see how satisfaction is determined basically, and we have to go through all these stages. All right, so eventually the perceived service quality is going to determine customers' level of satisfaction with the said quality. As mentioned earlier, there is a great relationship between expected quality and perceived quality. All right, because this is what eventually determines customer satisfaction at the end of the day. All right, customer compares their expectation to service received, and this determines their level of satisfaction. They have their own expectations, so it is when they compare their own expectations to what they actually receive that they will be able to determine whether they are satisfied or not. And when we're talking about satisfaction, don't forget that we need to talk about the quality first, because it is when they rate the level of quality to be high that they will actually agree, or they would actually be said to be satisfied with the service that is being rendered. So if the perceived actual quality is better than the expected, then customers will eventually be highly satisfied. They have their own expectations, but at the end of the day, what they actually received, the quality of what they actually receive is more than their expectations. All right, you even try to wow the customers. So at the end of the day, they will be highly satisfied. On the other hand, if the perceived actual quality is less than the expected, all right, they will be totally dissatisfied with the quality, okay, or with the service that is being rendered. So they have their own expectations, and at the end of the day, the actual whatever that they are being, the actual service that they are being received now is lower than their expectations. So definitely they'll be dissatisfied with the service. And lastly, if the actual is just about their expectation, that there was nothing spectacular or extraordinary about the service that is being rendered or provided, then they will be just satisfied. So their satisfaction will just be like just it. Human resources. Human resources is key to high quality service, especially to service rendering companies or industry like the tourism. When we talk about human resources, of course, we all know that this has to do with human beings, because we socialize, we relate with one another. Service organizations depend on everyone at all levels to deliver customer satisfaction, all right, at every level. Okay, creating learning organizations dedicated to continuous improvement and organizational effectiveness. And then lastly, utilize industry best practices in as many functional areas as possible. So all these are required, all these are necessary when it comes to human resources. At all levels, all employees have to play their own role perfectly, all right? They have to follow the best practices. Okay, they have to follow the best practices, and everyone depends practically on one another when it comes to delivering customer satisfaction. Human resources management. How do we manage human resources? How do we manage employees? Orientation or onboarding help new employees to become acquainted with the organization and understand the expectations. When you recruit new employee, you are expected to take them through, regardless of their level of experience, as long as they are just joining your own establishment or your own company, as it's where they have to be taught, they have to be given some level of orientation, some sort of information, all right, so that they will be able to get acquainted with the organization itself first, and they'll also understand their expectations. They'll also understand what is expected of them as a service provider. All right. Then we have working with organized labor as well. That is another way in which human resources can be managed. We have to work with organized labor. Then human resources can also be managed by mentoring program, having mentoring program for new employees. Take for example, maybe the head of a particular department can be a mentor to his subordinates. All right, so these are forms in which human resources can be managed, because if human resources are not being managed, it's going to definitely affect the service quality. It's going to affect how customers are going to rate the quality of the company. The most effective, supervisors gain the cooperation of others. So that is one of the most important thing when it comes to human resources management. When a supervisor is very, very good in terms of their relationship with their employees, then they tend to get their cooperation as well as their loyalty in discharging their services or their duties. Now we want to talk about anticipating and meeting guest needs. All right, this is a service rendering company, particularly the tourism industry that we are talking about now in this course, that we are discussing about in this course. So it is very, very important as a service rendering company to anticipate. All right, you should be able to anticipate, to foresee that what are customers likely to need in this given age, in this new age and time. What are they likely to need? All right, it's important to learn and fully understand what customers want in particular tourism service, and this can be done through many ways. The first is by marketing research. You can do your marketing research. You can also communicate frequently with customers, all right, and you should also welcome suggestions from frontline employees. Frontline employees are those that deal directly with the customers. So whenever they have suggestions based on their own interaction or encounter with their customers, then the management of the company company is expected to welcome such suggestions, as they will be of very high benefit to the company. Then hire the right people and train them well. This is very, very important also when it comes to anticipating and meeting the needs of customers. You have to hire the right people. Don't put a square, don't put a round ball in a square hole or whatever. Delivering successful customer services require allowing employees to think while they are doing it. You allow them, give them some free hand to do what they're supposed to do. And if you are going to give a free hand, then you should be sure that you are given the task to the right person. And that is why the right people should be employed. Not only being employed, they should also be trained very well. So these are the management methods that ensure high quality service. We've talked about learning and understanding what the customer wants, right? In terms of regular survey, okay, of the customers, you seek their opinion, you have their opinion about the service that is being rendered, seek their suggestion, and so on and so forth. You frequently interact with them, you actively seek and listen to the frontline, employee, and then you reduce the number of management level. Then you should also emphasize team goals. All right, this is another method, another way that high quality service can be ensured. Actively participate, support, recognize, and reward teams in achieving goals. So this is going to definitely ensure teamwork. Then we can also select and train the right people. Okay, if you want to ensure quality and high quality service, you have to reinforce the basic skills and abilities. You have to select employees with the following character traits, such as positive and willing service attitude. Employees should be positive and willing to be able to render such services. Then there should also be flexible and team-based behavior. So all these are required for high quality service. Regarding building service team, it is very, very important to know that delivering good service is a team effort. No one man is an island of his own, all right? So you can't do things perfectly alone. You have to interact with others. So usually when you are delivering good services, when you plan or when you aim at delivering good quality services, then you should know that it is a team effort. Recognizing individual efforts promotes employee involvement and commitment. So try as much as possible to promote. Employees should try as much as possible to identify each individual and promote their involvement and commitment at all levels. This is going to encourage team service. So also teams can be developed and supported by management in a variety of ways, in various ways, one of which is by being an active member of the team, right? By supporting with well-maintained and appropriate technology. You can support your team by providing well-maintained and appropriate technology so as to aid their job. Then to make decisions without constantly having to check with a supervisor. That is another form or another way in which the management can support their employees. Try to give them some level of flexibility to decide on some particular, to make some particular decisions in the company without necessarily having to wait for the supervisor. This gives them some level of involvement and commitment. And we are moving to mistakes happen. We know that as human beings, everything cannot be perfect with us all at all times. So only God is perfectly perfect, 100% perfect without any mistakes. So as human beings, error occurs, mistakes happen. So all we only do is to make amends when they happen and try to correct the situation. So mistakes happen, for example, maybe in the call service. Okay, for example, as a tourism company, maybe you are now providing traveling means of transportation or to clients, and unfortunately, in the midway, For example, if you are going by road, in the midway, unfortunately, the bus actually breaks down along the way. You can see that there is nothing the service provider can do about it or to avoid such from happening, because it wasn't actually anticipated. So it might, that kind of mistake might happen. All right. Unwillingness to accommodate customers' special need or requests at times. Maybe there are some customers that need some special that need to be attended to specially. So this is another kind of mistake when employees are not ready or willing to assist in such instances. And there are times there will be unsolicited tourism employee actions. Okay, you in an attempt to impress your customers, you are now trying to provide some unsolicited actions. You are now involving in some actions that are not appreciated by the customer. So these are ways in which mistakes can actually happen. Most customers give the provider a chance to make things right, regardless. Okay, like I made mention earlier, that a bus could break down in the middle of the road, or the course of the transportation of the tourists, for example, to their destination. So most times the customers will give the provider a chance to make things right. Okay, so the right situation, and turn the guest frown upside down. That is how you write your situation. You write the situation, you make things right, you correct things. That is the meaning of writing the situation. Reversal of a problem is also called service recovery. When mistakes happen, you try to reverse them, you try to make amends. Failure to solve problem can lead to highly memorable dissatisfaction. All right, when customers will tell you, I can never forget my encounter with so company because of the situation that happened. Okay, so as much as possible, mistakes are bound to happen, but when they happen, we should try to do our best in making amends, in righting the wrong. Satisfied guests represent potential future income flows because they are likely to come back. All right, they are likely to come back, while dissatisfied represent opportunities lost, because once they are dissatisfied, there is a high level of tendency that they will not come back, they will not patronize the company again. So that is why it is very, very important to make sure that each encounter counts favorably on the part of the service provider. Be a can-do problem solver. Try to solve problems. All right, as a team member, all team members need to search for fail points. You have to look at all, you have to tick all boxes to be able to determine where something went wrong. So every member of the team should work hand in hand so as to be able to do it in any organization. Encourage customers to voice problems immediately. All right, this is another way to solve issues. Okay, when rendering services, you should expect, you should expect feedback. You should try as much as possible to convince your customers to give you feedback, and you should always encourage them to voice their problem. Otherwise, once they stomach their problems, then these continue to ring in their head. The encounter continue to ring in their head, and they may not come back to patronize the company. Give quick response to any problem. Whenever you receive any problem regarding your service, you have to give quick response. Making things right involves a few steps action. Okay, when we want to make things right, we have to take a few steps of action. Okay, you want to acknowledge that the problem exists. The first thing is to acknowledge that yes, there is a problem. So that is one of the, that is the first thing to do, to admit that yes, this thing has not been done correctly or rightly. Like to be told why the problem occurred. Okay, well, the customers usually, they like to be told. When you are dealing with your customers, the first thing, once there is a problem, the company, the service rendering company should first admit that there is a problem. Then customers will relax. All right. The first thing is that they want you to admit that you have actually made a mistake. That's the first thing. Then they also like to be told while the problem occurred. The car broke down. Okay, fine. Was it that you didn't service your car? Even though that is not a very, very good attitude, and it doesn't portray the company to be good enough. But you can also tell them, you can also inform them that why we just changed the part, we just serviced this car, so we don't actually know what occurred or what made it broke down. But definitely you can even provide evidence. Okay, this is the receipt that we paid to the engineering or the engineer that actually worked on the car. So on, try as much as possible to tell customers why the problem actually happened in the first instance. Then customers usually want a sincere apology. Try as much as possible to apologize when mistakes happen, and you should be sincere with your apologies, not that you just render the apology or tender the apology without remorse, or you let it repeat itself again. So customers will know that you are not actually serious about solving that particular problem. Then usually they want some compensation as well, because when mistakes occur, it also costs the customers a lot. Say for example, someone going for a business trip, and perhaps there is a delay in the flight and so on and so forth. So all these are ways, this is one of the ways in which customers are also affected. So in that case, it would be good to compensate your customers. Steps should also be taken to continuously improve so that problems do not recur. Once the problem is identified, once the problem is identified and it's occurred, then service provider should try as much as possible to do the right so that it will not reoccur. Lastly, for today, we're going to discuss about service guarantee. We all know what guarantee is, and we know that it is very, very easy when we're talking about tangible items. Okay, for example, your smartphone, there are ways that companies do provide guarantees for customers. So for example, if this phone develops and fault within this period, you can bring it for repairs, you can bring it for exchange or something like that. So all these are ways of guaranteeing your customers satisfaction. But when it comes to the tourism or other service and rendering industry, it is quite challenging, all right? And that is why it is difficult to replace or to repair a tourism service. How do you repair a tourism service that was rendered badly? For example, maybe somebody that got dissatisfied with his or her visit to a theme park, for example. So how do you provide a guarantee for such customers? So service rendering companies should try as much as possible to provide guarantee that has 5 features, right? Because these are not the same. The service provision is not the same as that of goods production, all right? So the guarantee should have 5 features. First is the unconditionality, okay, with regards to the elements under the service provider's control. That is one of the way of offering the guarantee. The second is easy to understand and communicate, right? No fine print and legal language should be used when you want to offer guarantee to your customer. It should also be meaningful. Customers should, guaranteeing an important element of quality. It should be meaningful. What you want to communicate to your customers as guarantee should be meaningful. Apart from those 3, it should also be easy to collect. No hoops or jump through, no guilt placed on the customer. You don't place guilt on the customer because he or she is requesting for those guarantees for you to do your own part of the contract. Then lastly, it should be appropriate or restitution, or there should be appropriate or restitution compensation for customers' trouble. All right, when customers go through trouble or when they encounter trouble, then there should be compensation for them. So those are the ways, or those are the qualities of guaranteeing customers. In pre-purchase situations, customers perceive higher quality of hotels offering unconditional guarantees. When you want to offer customers services, okay, people tend to rate, for example, hotels that have unconditional guarantees. They tend to to rate them higher. They say, for example, if they are expected to pay before the service, then you can tell them that, okay, they have a money back assurance once they get to the hotel and they are dissatisfied with perhaps the environment or the facilities and so on. So customers will they will like to hear that. Both conditional and unconditional service guarantees should be effective tool to encourage customers to complain about their dissatisfaction, right? Whether you want to make it conditional or you want to make it unconditional, both situations should ensure that customers' satisfaction is guaranteed. So the onus is on the company. You want to give conditional guarantee or unconditional guarantee, then it is up to the company to ensure that both are actually effective in ensuring customers' quality and quality rating as well as satisfaction. Thanks so much for your audience today. We've come to the end of our class for today. Hope to see you again next week when we'll be moving to another topic. Inshallah. Take care of yourself. Bye.